genre.
This is a Pele Media podcast.
Hello and welcome to Theme Park This, the only podcast that dares ask the question, can we air an episode that we recorded 2 years ago? My name is Scott Corelli, and with me I have Brian Green.
We're going to try, Scott.
We sure are. Theme Park This is a podcast about creating the theme park of our dreams based on any subject, concept, or IP possible. Each episode includes a park made up of restaurants, mid-tier attractions, and e-ticket rides, using nothing but our imaginations. But today will be a little different because we are airing an episode that we recorded in February of 2020.
Now, Scott, I want to stop you for a second because I want to make sure everyone heard that.
Yes.
You did not say 2021. You said 2020.
Yes.
Okay.
This was the fourth ever episode we recorded. And the reason we didn't release it when we recorded is because we were going to release it a timed release with the release of No Time to Die. And yet I didn't even do that on purpose. That weird, like flip flop of words. That was weird. But No Time to Die kept getting pushed back. So we pushed the episode back. So originally it was going to come out in April, and then we pushed it back to November, and then it got pushed back again. So we pushed it to April again. And now it's finally coming out in October. And so this episode is finally coming out. This is not the way that we do things in season 2. This version of the show that you're about to listen to. This is very much a season 1 kind of episode. And in fact, it's an episode that Brian is a part of, but doesn't really participate in.
Yeah, and I still have not watched any more Bond movies between February 2020 and today. I haven't watched more, so sorry, y'all. Sorry, Bond heads.
Bond heads.
Is that what they're called? I don't know.
I don't know. I have no idea what they're called.
We just wanted to make sure we mentioned this because we just didn't want to be like, being like, oh, this COVID thing's not a big deal, right? Everyone agrees with me. Yeah. And then be like, really? Brian's like thinking this is a fake this long into it.
I mean, that doesn't happen. You never say that. And I went ahead and
what I said. The only thing I remember saying on this episode was I make a Finn McMissile joke at some point. You do. So that's literally the only thing I remember about this episode.
So our guest in this episode is Brady Crane, who is Kyle's brother. He was our first guest we ever recorded with. I took out every reference to him being our first guest because he isn't anymore. He's our honorary first guest. And I also took out like a few dated references to things like at one point the Disney cruise, the cruise ship comes up, the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, where we have all of the information now, but back then we had zero information, and so we were just like guessing about like what it could be.
I can't wait to afford to go to this hotel.
Yeah, so I cut that out too. But but in general, it's mostly exactly what it was. But unlike how we do things now, where we all sort of build the park together, back then we like came in with ideas and pitches and things like that. It was a little more we call PowerPoint presentation-y.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be that old style of episode because we didn't know what we were doing yet. But I
think the show's gotten better since then. I haven't listened to this episode yet, but I think we've gotten a lot better.
I think the podcast as a whole have gotten better, but I also think that our ride pitches have suffered. So, because our ride pitches are really good in this episode.
They are, yeah. We had some good stuff early on.
Yeah. So So that's the episode that you're about to listen to. We just wanted to record this so that you guys understood the context of which, like, wow, why does it sound like they don't know what they're doing anymore? Well, it's because we didn't when we recorded this. It's been, I guess a year and a half is what it's been. But that's still a long time. I mean, it was literally, we recorded this in February 25th of 2020. So about 3 weeks before the whole country shut down.
I was still planning a trip to Walt Disney World.
That's
back
right.
Then.
That's
still
right.
Haven't
sure
been.
Were. Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy this episode of Theme Park This about James Bond. Hello and welcome to Theme Park This, the only podcast that dares ask the question, can a theme park only have one kind of cocktail? My name is Scott Corelli, and with me I have Kyle Crane.
It's Crane, Kyle Crane.
Green, Brian Green.
Welcome, my friends.
And Crane, Brady Crane.
Hey, good to see you. Kyle, you already took the Brady Crane joke, because it's so hilarious and everything. I was so excited about using it as my own. So.
Oh, well, sorry. I guess we should have met up beforehand and talked about this. Sorry about that.
Right? Damn.
And Brady, thank you for joining us for this round.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been a while since we've talked. We did some of the Movies by Minutes shows in the past, and Brian, this is actually the first time we're ever meeting, so this is exciting. Yeah. I appreciate you guys having me on. The concept for the show is awesome. This is something that I think there should be more of in the world, is people just sitting back and talking about what the hell they could turn into a theme park or a themed attraction of some kind. So this is a long time coming.
Today's episode, we are discussing what we could do with the James Bond 007 property in a theme park. This has been one that has been long discussed. I've always heard rumors about it being a possible stunt show. That comes up a lot. And it's never actually happened, which is shocking. I imagine that the adult themes have something to do with that. It's not exactly the most family friendly property, which makes it difficult to do a theme park with it. But we're gonna give it a shot. So we're gonna be talking about James Bond. But before we get into our theme parks, what is everyone's connection to this theme? Kyle, you chose the theme.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear from you first. What is it about James Bond and spy stuff that you're into?
So I think one of the cool things about it is James Bond is really kind of like the only, well, not the only, but one of the biggest free agent IPs out there that's not tied into any kind of theme park right now. So when we were talking about potential show ideas, that stuck out to me. It also stuck out because, and I'll speak a little bit for Brady, I know we're going to get to him in a second here. We grew up in a household where we were watching James Bond movies all the time. We kind of grew up during, the Pierce Brosnan era, mostly, of James Bond, but we would always catch it on TBS and stuff like that. And it always seemed to be this thing that was just kind of like, if the four Crane brothers had nothing going on, there was probably a James Bond movie on TBS, and we'd all just sit down in the living room and watch it and appreciate it in all of its cheesy glory. So the idea of a spy-related theme park just seemed like it's kind of a natural fit, especially after what they were able to do with Galaxy's Edge. The first place my mind went to when we were talking about what we could do with theme parks is, something like kind of a covert mission, cloak and dagger spy type thing could be really cool. But I guess we'll find out how cool it could be here in the conversation today. But
it's going to suck.
No.
Brady, what about you?
Oh, Kyle's right. It just always seemed like there was some kind of James Bond marathon going on. And if it wasn't watching the movies, it was playing the movies. It was, however you could work James Bond into your everyday life was pretty much just how things went. But I think my first my introduction to James Bond would have been in the Timothy Dalton era, and I do remember seeing The Living Daylights as one of the first ones that I saw, and so that was sort of my initial interpretation of Bond. And then as you grew older, you started to see some of the other ones, and just how different, let's say, what Roger Moore was doing from, say, what Sean Connery was doing in some cases, or Timothy Dalton was doing in some cases. Those movies are very, very, very different types of movies. But you could even go as far back to, say, Barry Nilsson, who was doing the very first James Bond, Jimmy Bond, on the televised Casino Royale way back when, and how different that is from what you see going on right now. So, a lot of variety in that franchise.
What about you, Brian?
So I think I'm the odd man out here, where my exposure to Bond is, pretty limited. I've seen a few here and there. I've seen Casino Royale, saw Skyfall. I think I saw Spectre. I think I saw GoldenEye years and years and years ago because I was obsessed with the video game on the N64. But beyond that, like I don't know these movies all that well. I think I know that you only move twice from The Simpsons. Way better than I know anything that has to do with James Bond. Actually,
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always enjoyed it when I have watched it, though.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Scott, what's your familiarity with the franchise?
It was always something that I regarded as a child as mostly not for me. They always felt boring to me and like a little macho in a way that I wasn't super interested in. As a kid, I liked more adventure stuff, and this was more like action and sexy lady stuff, and it was not the thing that I was particularly interested in when I was a kid. And it wasn't until GoldenEye, I think that was the first one that I actually sat and watched, and I think I saw that in a theater. I'm pretty sure my dad took me, and I didn't want to go, and then I ended up really liking it, and of course got obsessed with the game later on. So many sleepovers playing GoldenEye all night, and desperately trying to find a new game to play, and nothing stacked up in the same way. And
that Mission Impossible game was all right, but it was definitely no GoldenEye.
Yeah, no, it was.
I tried playing the Mission Impossible game thinking it was, and that was not the same thing at all.
It tried its best, but it just nothing was going to come close to that GoldenEye game. So, and then I was really excited for the sequel. What was that? That's Die Another Day?
Never Dies?
Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow Never Dies, yeah.
So I watched Tomorrow Never Dies, and I was like, was that bad? I think it was bad. And then watching the third one, and I was like, oh no, this is really bad. I don't like these.
No.
I think GoldenEye might have been a fluke. And so then I didn't see the last one with Halle Berry, and I didn't watch Casino Royale when it came out, because when it came out, I just thought, well, that's not for me. I don't like James Bond. And then it was, I think it was after Quantum of Solace, actually, that everyone was like, oh man, Quantum of Solace was so bad. And I was like, well, yeah, what do you expect? It's James Bond. James Bond is bad. And they're like, okay, but you saw Casino Royale, right? Because Casino Royale is amazing. And I was like, sure it is. And somebody finally convinced me to watch it, and I watched it, and I was like blown away by Casino Royale, which is like a nearly perfect action movie, action thriller, or however you want to, espionage, whatever. It's amazing. Casino Royale is incredible, and I really loved that, and then was really excited for Skyfall. Agreed with everyone else about Quantum of Solace being barely a sequel. It's like mostly like a epilogue to the previous film.
Yeah. I was going to ask if you've ever watched them back to back, and if you think that gives Quantum any.
I mean, not as
it.
It will never stand on its own as a real movie. It's just an epilogue to Casino Royale. So, like, I feel like the only appropriate way to watch it is right after Casino Royale. When you're like winding down and not really paying attention, because it's just not very good. It's just not very good. Yeah,
it's not great.
It's just
strong
not very
endorsement
good.
from Scott Carell.
And then Skyfall, of course, blew me away like everyone else. And Spectre was real pretty to look at, but boy, was that movie boring. Big old mistake. So it was, I think it was before Spectre, because as Spectre was coming out, the thing that we're hyping was like, oh, we're definitely not bringing back Blofeld, but everyone knew that they were. Definitely not going to bring back Blofeld, but
it's not Khan,
Spectre.
don't worry.
Yeah, it is Spectre, so we're doing some throwback, but definitely not Blofeld. Trust us, we're definitely not lying about that. And I was like, okay, I don't know anything about Bond, so maybe I should go back and watch all the Bond movies. So then I watched all the Bond movies, and as you guys will find out, like way later down the line in our schedule, I'm a massive Doctor Who fan, and Doctor Who and James Bond have a lot in common. They're both British. The main actor changes a lot with no explanation, and they're both, the older ones are both equally cheesy, right? Like they're really goofy stuff going on there. Because there's a dry sort of campiness that the Brits were really into in the like 60s, 70s that both franchises really got into. And so watching through the older movies, having watched a lot of classic Doctor Who, I got more into it. And I don't love the James Bond franchise, but I do have an appreciation of it. They're not all good. They're not all bad. In fact, you could say that about every individual film as well. They're not all good, but they're not all bad. And it's an interesting franchise. I don't know. I get why people are so obsessed with it. I don't think James Bond should be a role model for anyone, but
no.
but it's it's an interesting franchise, and I definitely see why people are so obsessed with it and sort of get really into things like, the suits that he's wearing and the watches and the gadgets and the cars and all of that stuff. I get it. Even if it's not totally my brand.
Right.
Yeah, it's more like the idea of James Bond rather than what James Bond actually turned out to be. I think that's the appeal.
It's funny,
of
Scott, that you
it.
say GoldenEye was kind of where you came in. And that was, I think, the first one I remember seeing in the theaters. But that was really the first Bond movie that was kind of self-aware and was really addressing the times and the fact that James Bond kind of sucks as a person and he wasn't one to be idolized. And you get M really just reading him up and down.
Yeah.
And saying like, man, you're I think she calls him a relic of the Cold War. Like, and it sucks because like it was a really good movie to kind of restart the franchise as it had been dead for a few years. Mm-hmm. And Martin Campbell just did a bang up job making a pretty good movie. And then the rest of them were just like, I don't know if you've seen the documentary Everything or Nothing.
I have.
That's big retrospective. It's amazing.
Really good.
Pierce Brosnan starts to confuse the movies he was in, and he's like, man, after GoldenEye, they just kind of blended together. And he laughs, and I'm like, yeah, it's funny and everything, but it's true. And these movies should not fall short of the standard of, so much of what had come before, and including GoldenEye. Mm-hmm. And it did, and all of them were just subpar movies, and it sucks because I think he was a good Bond. He was just given these really shitty scripts and everything. And so it's funny that Martin Campbell came back to reinvigorate things with Casino Royale just a few years later, and then said he would never come back to Bond again, which kind of sucks. But
well, yeah, I mean, he had Green Lantern to make, so he had his priorities, Brady.
Universally beloved film.
Yeah. Good point.
All right. Well, let's get started because we've got restaurants to talk about. So, what are we thinking for a James Bond restaurant style or themed restaurant? Kyle, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So with my restaurant, I kind of wanted to tie it into a resort as well, which would be the Golden Eye Resort, which is based on Ian Fleming's house in Jamaica. And then, of course, no Jamaican-style food in the in what I've got here. So for this one, I know usually we kind of talk about the surroundings and the ambiance of everything, but I actually made a list of some food items that could be served at this restaurant. I'm calling it the Casino Royale Royal Buffet. To fill it in with kind of, if you ever go to Las Vegas and you stay at a hotel, they're all famous for their buffets. So you go to the Bellagio, you go to the buffet and the Flamingo and so on and so on. So what I did is came up with a few food items here I wanted to read out to you guys and just kind of see if any of this sounds like it's appealing to you. So these foods are inspired by James Bond films, and they'll make you want to diet another day because this food is for your thighs only.
Nice.
So first of all, we've got Spectre Ghost Pepper Tacos featuring Quantum of Salsa. I've got Thunder Meatballs featuring Curly Q's. Grilled Octopussy on the top of Her Majesty's Seaweed Salad. Let's see. Gold Chicken Fingers with featuring spicy Albert broccoli.
Nice.
For dessert, we have Moonraker pie, and then of course the big dish here would be the License to Grill barbecue platter with Odd Job corn on the cob, and of course a vegan dish. For those out there, this is the Dr. No Meat which would be a soy-based steak on top of a kale
Man,
salad.
I got to
So-
tell you, you're either that good or you spent a lot more time than I did on this. 'Cause that's pretty good.
He just paid the Bob's Burgers writers to pitch that to him.
Exactly. Yeah. I outsource all of my stuff here. But I'm thinking of, so many James Bond films take place in casinos. There's usually some sort of like person he has to meet at like a craps table or something like that. So you'll see Bond sitting there, maybe, with some innuendo, be it adult oriented or kind of like trying to move the plot forward where he's trying to meet somebody and he's pretending to be somebody else. So I'm thinking it would be kind of cool to have this in a darkly lit, like casino type area. And then, of course, a bunch of jokey stuff here for the food. But I'm thinking that would kind of maybe set the mood for what would probably be a very action-heavy park. I think we're going to get into that in a minute. But I'm thinking the kind of other side of that coin would be maybe a very dark, very kind of like not solemn or somber, but kind of like mysterious eating establishment.
So,
Okay.
is this an actual resort or is it this just the restaurant?
So I spent the majority of time on the
Okay.
restaurant because of the food puns. But Golden Eye, well, what I'm thinking here is there actually is a Golden Eye resort in Jamaica, which has no affiliation with the Broccoli estate, which are the owners of the James Bond franchise, or Ian Fleming. But Ian Fleming, after he was a submarine commander in World War II, I think it was, he fell in love with Jamaica and he built a house there. And I think there were a few other writers that had, like, the Firefly estate is around the corner, and he wrote the James Bond books at Goldeneye. So there is a very distinct style to kind of the British Jamaican. It's a colonial style. I think it's like Jamaican colonial that are really cool looking houses that kind of usually sit on water with a big porch, and then of course the inside is just a little bedroom and everything because you spend most of your day outside drinking, staring at like beautiful oceans and stuff like that. So what I'm thinking here is kind of maybe a bunch of houses like that on a large body of water. Kind of in that GoldenEye style. So probably something more akin to like the Polynesian, they're upscaled at Disney World. The Polynesian resort has a few on the water, the kind of like houses. So, yeah.
So is this a resort or is it meant to look like a resort or meant to look like a casino?
Both. So it would be resort rooms overlooking water attached to the Casino Royale would just be the restaurant. So there wouldn't actually be any gambling or anything like that. So yeah, you'd walk from your room, which is located on water, over to the Casino Royale.
Okay, so this is an actual room. It's not a restaurant themed to look like a resort. It's an actual resort where you can stay.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Gotcha.
so,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
One thing I need to ask about: if I stay at this resort, do I get like one of those like fun blue rompers that he has in Goldfinger? Because that's like one of the
Yes. Instead of how
that's probably the strongest memory I have of that movie is the sexism and the blue romper.
yeah, that's instead of a robe in your closet, you'll have a blue
Okay, I'm
romper
sold.
for everyone.
Done.
Yeah.
Kyle, you mentioned the GoldenEye Ranch. You can actually stay there. And I don't know if you guys have ever looked into the prices, but I mean, it starts at just like astronomical amounts. Like I can't even remember like the going rate or whatever. But what's interesting, if I'm not mistaken, you can actually stay in Ian Fleming's like bedroom or something, and they still have his writing desk where he wrote some of the original books.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, I think this GoldenEye resort I'm talking about is going to be slightly cheaper in price than actually staying in GoldenEye itself. So, yeah.
But you know what? You could still set up painstakingly recreate Ian Fleming's office just like Walt's office at Disneyland.
That'd be awesome.
Yes,
That'd
yeah. With a big old bottle of booze right on the desk just to make it authentic. So,
Yeah. Big bottle of rum. There's your plus up. Brady, what's your restaurant?
So I kind of got stumped going into this one, and I thought that, as with a lot of the ideas I was coming up with for this, you'd have to get really James Bond centric to really like show that this is a James Bond themed thing. Like Kyle, all of the dishes were clearly from. There's no way you could look at that menu and not say like, oh, this is all from James Bond or whatever. So one of the things I was thinking is that. Okay, Jacques Lindsay's Hangar Bar in Disney World. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's in Disney Springs, and it's supposed to be kind of tangentially related to Indiana Jones.
I love it.
Oh,
and I went in there and I liked it, but if I was a layman, I would have absolutely no idea that there's an Indiana Jones connection here. So if that was their goal, I don't know if for me anyway, I don't know if they really got it across.
Mm-hmm.
And so mine, instead of like, what would you do? It was more like, what would you not do? And it was not take the Jacques Lindsay's Hangar Bar route and probably try and have some more James Bond centric stuff in there. But then you run the risk of like beating people over the head with like, hey, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
You're in Planet Hollywood or something.
Yeah.
So it's
just beat them over the head with relentless puns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Who would do that?
Who would do that? But so it's short answer, whatever. But it's more or less like, what wouldn't you do? So I have absolutely no answer for you.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
mine is mine is a 1960s themed cocktail bar. Where they
cool.
only serve one kind of drink, and it's it's a martini,
It's a Tom
a watered down
Collins.
martini, because they're shaken instead of stirred like they're supposed to be, which is the joke, right? I think Ian Fleming wrote that as a joke, which is that like James Bond can't handle his liquor, and no one got the joke.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, because you're not supposed to shake a martini because it waters down
Yeah.
the alcohol. Like you're supposed to stir it, because you don't want to
That's
melt
crazy.
a bunch of ice in a martini because it waters down the liquor. So the fact that he asked for it shaken, not stirred, is actually not cool. It's the opposite of cool. It's pretty lame. James Bond is lame and he can't handle his alcohol. But really, it's just a cocktail bar. I'm joking about only a martini. As much as funny as that would be, here's your menu and it's one option. So it's a 1960s themed cocktail bar, and it's just they're gonna have a live lounge singer happening, and it's it's gonna be like, hear one of 25 of your favorite James Bond theme songs, and sung by
Nice.
a really talented lounge singer. And I think it would be like a really nice, chill place to hang out after a long day at a theme park.
Yeah. I don't know how bad I want to be hearing the theme to The Man with the Golden Gun blaring in my ear though while I'm trying
well,
to do
look,
anything.
the ones that are questionable, they would class them up a little bit.
Mhm.
They would make them a little better. They'd be
Gotcha.
covers where you'd know what it was, and if it's a good song, they'd keep it as is. If it's not such a good song, maybe they plus it up a little bit. Make it a little,
Gotcha.
reorchestrate it to make it a little more palatable.
The only song I will ever do at karaoke is Nobody Does It Better by, who sang it? Carly Simon. Yes.
Yeah.
I just completely destroy that every time in a bad way.
So, Scott, your idea here actually brings up something that I think could be really cool about a James Bond theme park, which is it's a franchise that has been 40 years, I believe, at least, that has been going through. So we've got different time periods that you could tap into. And I know you're a big fan of kind of the mid-century modern, mod look type thing.
For sure.
Is there any kind of specific design that you think that or color palette or anything you're thinking about when you think about this lounge?
I'm definitely thinking about a place that when you walk into it, you feel like you should be smelling cigarettes,
Yes.
like in a classy way, which doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense. But I remember being a kid and walking into a place and smelling smoke and just being like, "Wow, this place is for adults and it's cool."
Grown-ups are here. Yeah.
Just like that real sort of Mad Men vibe. I definitely want it to be darker. I definitely wanted to have outdoor seating so that you can still hear the lounge singer, but they're not right in your face like they would be if you sat inside. So I'm just thinking of maybe a place slightly larger than a Trader Sam's,
Yeah.
with the stage involved and lots of outdoor seating and just a really nice classy establishment that you feel really, really relaxed and taking in those James Bond vibes.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
And it fits thematically, and it also fits for a purpose of this is kind of an adult franchise, so it kind of seems, I imagine a park like this would probably not draw families so much as it would older people.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's a great fit. That's a wonderful, and the idea of the lounge singer singing the songs the whole time is that's really cherry on top. It's
Yeah,
great.
because I'm honestly picturing this park the obvious choice seems like, oh yeah, you put this in London, right? Because they could use some more themed entertainment out there. But I think the best choice for a James Bond park is honestly in Las Vegas. Because
Yeah.
I think you could do an adult theme park in Las Vegas without losing out on any money from families.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
'Cause that's the danger, right? Is how do you make something like this profitable? And I think Las Vegas is the obvious choice.
I hadn't even considered that because, everything I think because familiarity, and I think Brady will say the same thing. We probably both go to Florida.
Sure.
It's the first thing is like where all the theme parks are. My wife actually just got back from a trip in Las Vegas, and the whole time I was thinking about it, I was like, that place is dying for something I don't like to gamble. It'd be great to go to like a theme park out there and, see shows and stuff like that. And there's nothing there. For a while, there was some Star Trek themed stuff,
Right.
which I'm sure we'll talk about in a future episode, and it's not there anymore. So if you're not really into the vices that come with Las Vegas, that's a brilliant idea, putting it out there by itself. It fits perfectly.
I'd go there.
Yeah, because it's a man. It's like literally like Vice is turned into a human man.
Yes.
It's kind of weird that he's British, but like I mean, does any character really just like feel like Las Vegas more than James
That's a good
Bond?
point.
So yeah, that's where I think my park would
Yes,
be
the
in
only
Vegas.
character that feels more Las Vegas than James Bond is Wayne Newton's character in License to Kill. Doesn't he play himself in that movie? I mean, more or less. Whatever.
Yeah.
I forgot a lot about that movie.
They honestly, at a certain point, the eras just blend together, and I can't differentiate
Yeah.
the individual movies as much. Daniel Craig is the only one that I can pinpoint each individual movie, but I think it's because I was watching them as they came out, so it helps. Okay, so we talked about that. So let's talk about our attraction. And as a reminder, attractions can be sort of people eater, like simple rides. It can be some sort of live show. It can be anything that isn't a e-ticket thrill ride attraction. So let's see what we've got going on. Kyle.
Yeah. So this one was kind of hard for me to wrap my head around because attraction, I think the thing that your mind immediately goes to is stunt show for this kind of thing. Like
Sure.
It seems like it's a perfect fit. In fact, when they were first developing Lights Motor Action over at Disneyland Paris, the rumor is that they approached MGM about using James Bond, but they had some tie-ups with the Broccoli family. Is really weird about royalties. So they were like, you know what, we're just going to use our own generic kind of like European spy type thing. And you can see there's some nods to, it kind of feels like James Bond, but it isn't when you go over to see it. And then, but so I'm not a big stunt show guy, honestly. I like the idea of it, but if I'm in a theme park, I'm going to be riding a ride or eating at a restaurant or drinking at a lounge. I don't really want to sit there and, in the hot sun and just watch things explode. There's just too much heat in one place. So I was thinking of, but I still like the idea of a James Bond stunt show. So what I came up with is something that we've heard some rumors about, but there hasn't really been a lot of usage of this. I think Galaxy's Edge at one point was supposed to have a component like this, but they either got axed or they haven't put it in yet, which is a kind of the entire park is a stunt show. So I'm thinking of a park that kind of looks like a European city, kind of like, old world meets kind of like a new world type stuff like you find in a lot of European cities with sporadic random stunts built in to the scenery. So the idea is that you're here in this park and there's just spy stuff going on everywhere around you. So at random times, you might hear a song pick up and you might look up on top of a building and there's a person running from building to building getting in a shootout or something like that. Or maybe there's a street that gets blocked off and all of a sudden a car pulls up and somebody jumps out and they catch on fire or something like that. So the attraction I'm thinking of is kind of a randomly generated stunt show that could happen in the main area at any time, be it a shootout or a motorcycle chase or hang glider, whatever kind of thing, or a guy on a jetpack, whatever you would see in a James Bond film. But it's not anything that you actually have to queue up for. It's just kind of as you're in the town walking around and shopping and
this
stuff.
This doesn't sound too unsimilar from like Frontierland would occasionally have two cowboys in quotes suddenly start arguing at each other in the streets and either have a shootout or just walk away from each other or something like that. It sounds like a little bit more of an updated version of that.
So, yeah, and what I'm thinking is you might be sitting there in a restaurant and all of a sudden a woman in a cat suit walks by and you're like, okay, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden she pulls a Walter PPK out of her purse and just starts shooting at somebody on the other side of the street. And, things are kind of like sparking as bullets are hitting them or whatever, and it's just kind of you're there in that situation.
It's kind of like what they promised us Galaxy's Edge was going to be before
right
before the new Disney CEO axed all those ideas.
Yikes.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of that this is the other scenario that it might work really well in. So definitely a nod to Galaxy's Edge because they had that idea first, but since they haven't enacted on it yet, I'm sticking it to my theme park. So that's it. Stunt show that's just happening around you at random intervals.
Cool.
Okay, so this brought up an idea in my head. Do y'all know anything about Sleep No More in New York?
No.
Yeah,
so
just
Sleep
a
No
little
More
bit. Go
is
ahead.
an immersive theater show, immersive play. It is a mixture of it's some old movie, I don't remember which one it is, and Macbeth. And it is like set in like jazz era, like in this hotel, and you go in, you are given a mask, and you are given free reign. If you can walk wherever you would like in this 5-story warehouse that is made to look like an old 20s hotel. And as you're walking around, you can explore. There's a graveyard. There's a forest. There is a back alley. There's bars. There are hotel rooms. There's a ballroom. And as you're walking around, there are actors performing scenes. And so you can choose to go follow this character or that character as you're going around. And so like you could choose to follow one character the whole time. You could choose to just like wander aimlessly and just open drawers. It's an unbelievably immersive experience. And I would love to see that with James Bond. I think that could be really cool. Like with just with spy stuff going on all around, you could choose to follow this one character. I've done and see what he's up to, what's going on in his life when James Bond isn't around.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
So
it's just like a day-to-day type thing, and it's whatever it is. Yeah.
And that's in my head. I was kind of calling this the spying world of James Bond because it kind of seems like to follow James Bond himself would kind of be. This is more about the idea of like a spy type thing than it is an actual character that you're following around or interacting with or anything like this. So yeah, to that effect, to Brian, what you're saying, it's like a living world that you just happen to be in, and it's going to happen around you.
It's
no
like
matter
let's
what.
follow James Bond to the grocery store to see like what he's going to get, or he's got to get his car washed today. He's got to take the Aston Martin through the old car wash.
Yeah, just loading up kitty litter in the back of his Aston Martin. Yeah, yeah.
Hey, somebody had to take Blofeld's cat when he died. I mean, shit,
Yeah. Brady, what's your attraction?
It's crazy that you guys are saying, these more like interactive ideas as opposed to like rides or a stunt show per se or something like that, because that's exactly where I went as well, with something kind of, I guess, like a James Bond experience, like a walk around experience. But I started thinking, except for like, do something a little bit more spy centric than say James Bond specific, and that would be to sort of customize your own adventure and starting off going through like say Q Branch or something like that, and you're given like little bits of tech that he would have had throughout the movies or thing you can sort of design. I think Test Track in Epcot gives you a similar option where you can sort of design your car and then you get to ride the car and see how the car does, although I think it's pretty randomized. But just to be able to take that through a sort of Galaxy's Edge type environment, something that's kind of themed. But you could even go beyond that. Instead of designing just your spy tech you can bring, you could actually design your own missions. And those are sort of like, or pick and choose from a select few that you're offered. And you have to like go fulfill those with your spy tech that you designed for yourself. And throughout, there could be little things that, okay, what was the Kim Possible experience they had at Epcot a few years ago where you had like a cell phone that would go off? I never did it, but you'd walk around hearing, that's it. Yes, I think that's all anybody called it, was just that, like a little ringtone. But there was this thing where you could walk around Epcot and you had some kind of device. I think it was a burner phone or trap phone or something like that. And then it would go off and little thing. Kyle, you could probably explain this better than I can real quick, if you don't mind.
No. You're saying the right thing. I mean, it was the coolest thing in the world. And I think it's getting retrofitted to be DuckTales, but you would go around the different World Showcase pavilions, type something into your phone, and then a random, even a little thing would happen, like a clock would open and a cuckoo bird would come out or something like that. And
something like that. And whatever the little piece of gear or spy tech that you got, would go off and initiate something and help you find like another clue that would further your adventure. One thing that came to mind would be, okay, let's say for the sake of a story here, that the 00 agent who was there before you came up missing, but he was able to leave you messages to help spur your quest on or whatever. And so there could be a big wall, and on it with invisible ink is some kind of clue you've got to read to move to the next step. And you can only see it with infrared glasses or something like that. And I remember there used to be these little spy kits you could get as a kid, and they would have little, little spy tags, things like that. And one of them was invisible ink that you had to wear a certain pair of infrared glasses, and you could actually read what was written on, a piece of paper or whatever with invisible ink. So, you could be, again, I'm going to use Galaxy's Edge as the example, walking around Galaxy's Edge or making it the place where you're going to have your customized spy mission, and you have to use the little bits and pieces that you designed yourself to carry out the mission. So
yeah,
something along those lines, man.
Yeah. It also reminds me a little bit of like the Disney Play app that they use in Galaxy's Edge, and that is not something that you get to really design, but you do get to decide like what you're scanning and what you're not, and what side you're working on and that stuff. So it feels like a sort of evolved version of that, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
and that kind of thing would
a very modern.
It would have to be very limited, because otherwise people would be walking around all day not knowing what the hell to do.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
So my attraction, I kind of went in a slightly different direction with this, and I went slightly meta on my my attraction, because I wanted to do something that sort of celebrated the sort of 25 feature films of Bond. And so a lot like my cocktail bar sort of celebrates Bond as a franchise, so does my attraction. And it's going to be, the facade is going to be the MI6 building, and then when you go inside, it's sort of a almost like an Alfred Hitchcock Presents at Universal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one of the like that opening day attraction where you sort of go through the history of Bond and learn a little bit about the way that like stunts have evolved over time, the way they used to be versus how they are now, and that sort of thing. And then you sort of it spits you out into a like a museum kind of thing with like costumes and props and cars and stuff from James Bond, and it would be like a really great place to like keep all of that stuff, rather than putting it in like a traveling museum exhibit that only shows up every like anniversary or something. Yeah. So like that's what I was thinking for my attraction. I was also thinking that once you get into that portion of it, the museum portion, there's also a series of escape rooms that you could,
Brilliant.
that you could set up some times with, where you go through the app or whatever, and you say like, oh, I want to do this escape room at like 2:00, and you and sometimes strangers, because it always has to be fully booked. You get into a room and you got to escape it in like 30 minutes or something. So I would sort of line the building with those escape rooms, which I think would be pretty cool. And I also think that you could easily do like multiple kinds of escape rooms too. You could do some where you are the supervillain and you're trying to escape from MI6, and then you could do some where you are an MI6 agent and you're trying to escape from a supervillain, and those are very different rooms. And I think that would be a pretty cool thing to do as well. So that would be my attraction. It's simple, but I think that you could get a lot out of it, which is kind of what you would want. You build an attraction to pull people away from the restaurant and e-ticket.
Right.
So
your great
totally.
idea with the escape room thing could totally lend itself to this. Absolutely.
If that were in early 90s Universal, I would be all about James Bond today.
There's so many famous situations in James Bond films that you could recreate in that too. The laser from Goldfinger.
That's the first thing I thought of, was the laser from Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. I hope not.
Yeah. Well, that's a great idea, Scott. I really like that one.
All right. Well, let's talk about e-tickets, huh? And I should also point out
Yeah.
that Brian isn't participating because, again, he doesn't have a big history in Bond. So he's our friend that we drag to the Bond theme park, and he's just trying to have a good time.
So yeah, you're the judge
Yeah.
to tell us like which idea sucks less.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
He's the arbiter.
Hey, I was like 20 minutes into planning a laser tag like thing where you wore giant gloves so you played slappers only. Like that was my idea. And I was like, this is terrible. What am I doing?
All right. Well, let's talk about e-tickets.
Yeah.
Kyle, what is your e-ticket James Bond attraction?
So before we did this today, I had to send you guys kind of a diagram of what I'm thinking about because I don't know that there's really a ride system that encapsulates everything I wanted to do with this. So it's a ride in two phases, and I'll describe what I've got written down here, but maybe we can post it whenever we post the show so people can kind of imagine what I'm talking about here. So the e-ticket ride. I do not have a name for it, which we can maybe come up with something while we're talking here, but it'd be a combination motion simulator and kind of like a slot racer style ride akin to Radiator Springs Racers or Test Track.
Okay.
So the premise of this is that you're not actually visiting anything relating to James Bond directly. You're visiting the Aston Martin factory, which is holding an open house to show off a new model of car they're testing. So it's going to be a 6-person Aston Martin with auto-driving technology.
Oh,
So,
please tell me that they have to explain that in the queue, like the Back to the Future DeLorean convertible.
Oh,
God.
absolutely. There'll be a lengthy video explaining ahead of time that Aston Martin is finally getting into the like ride sharing thing, and you can fit 6 people in here and everything. So, but it's a luxury car that can handle a family of 6 people.
The clunkier
Aston
the better,
Martin
please.
for the family man.
Exactly, yeah. So the car won't be open air. It actually will have a cover to it, which will be important, kind of how the technology works. But the idea here is you would walk in and you get in on maybe the left side of the car, and the right side of the car has kind of a robotic arm attached to it. And this is in the theme of the ride because they're going to be showing off a motion simulation of what this ride would be like. So this robotic arm I'm picturing would have 2 prongs on the bottom and 1 prong on the top to kind of hold everything into place. Now the top one could detach, which is going to be important in a minute, but the idea is that this is going to be a projection mapping room that you're going to get in with 5 other strangers in the car, and then it is going to tilt forwards and backwards while in neutral to simulate kind of a slow roll forward and a slow roll backwards. So imagine kind of a half circle shaped platform that you're on that tilts forwards and backwards, and you only roll just a few inches or so. It's going to simulate what it's like driving through the Swiss Alps, through Tokyo, through the streets of Paris, all these James Bond type places you would find in Aston Martin. But then at some point, all of a sudden, the lights go out, and the Spectre logo flashes up in front of you. And Spectre tells you that this is actually not an Aston Martin car. This is a model for a new MI6 car, and they're about to come in and steal it. Spectre agents are on their way. Well, the Spectre transmission is broken into by Q, who's telling you, you need to hold on because we have to get you to an MI6 safe house garage in just a second, or else these people are going to kill you. So
I love that the feed is broken into twice.
Oh yes,
Two
twice.
layers.
Yeah. And I thought even about having it go back and forth between the 2 agents when what's about to happen happens. But yes, Q has to break in to tell you he's going to get you to a safe house. Since it's an auto-driving car, you better hold on. The front drops down, and all of a sudden, the robotic arm detaches from the car, and we're in a Test Track or Radiator Springs type race through a European city. So since this is a theme park, the practicality is going to have to be, it's not going to be a open city that you're weaving in and out of cars. It'd probably be just a few blocks and have to create a big circle so it can get back to where it begins with. So it will start off, you just rocket out of the building and then come to a stoplight, and then all of a sudden a black SUV is in front of you and the back door opens up and a machine gun comes out and starts shooting at the car. But of course, it's James Bond, it's an Aston Martin, it's bulletproof. So the whole time you're in there, the car's shaking, you're seeing things like firing at you, but nothing's really happening. Q then takes the car into oncoming traffic. So you're racing through oncoming traffic when Q tells you that he has picked up heat signatures on top of the roofs and snipers are going to start firing on you. So while the car is racing into oncoming traffic, you're hearing thuds on the roof where snipers are shooting at the car. And then Q tells you finally he's going to get you to the safe house, but he has to cut through an alley and then down a 1-lane bridge to the mountains beyond. So, and this last little piece, the finale, you're racing down a bridge when either a drone or a helicopter, something like that, will have to raise up on the side of the bridge and fire on you as it's coming at you. And of course, being a James Bond spy car, you're going to fire back. So Q stops the car, machine guns pop out of the hood and start firing back at it until it disappears out of your view. Yeah. So then finally you make it past the bridge, around a corner, and then a boulder moves out of the way, to which you park the car back for the next guest to get in. But this time you're in an MI6 safe house garage to where you can actually exit the car and walk to a gift shop. On your way, you'll see all the different models of cars that James Bond has had throughout the films. So, and if you want to, of course, you can buy a BMW or an Aston Martin in the gift shop. But
of course, well, I'm here.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So the total ride, I'm thinking, is going to be about like 6 or 7 minutes. You'll have 2 minutes where it's introducing you in the beginning, the kind of not pre-show, but the idea of that this is a ride simulation before the 3 to 4 minute race through a European city to get to the safe house. So, again, don't have a name for it, but that's kind of my idea for an e-ticket.
That's awesome.
Ride.
I love that.
Okay, so I'm going to plus this up here.
Damn.
Yeah.
So since this is Bond but it is also the Radiator Springs idea, like the car. Can we add in Finn McMissile and Holly Shiftwell from Cars 2?
I mean, thematically, it'll be a weird fit, but I'm all for it. Yeah.
Nice. Are we talking old Q here or
well, that's the
young
thing.
hot
Q
boy
could
Q?
just
Which
be a
one?
voiceover. So if it's a sound alike, you could have it set in any era. You could have a John Cleese. You could have the new kid. I'm not sure what his name is. But
Paddington.
I would think probably it would need to be. Wait, what's that?
His name is Paddington Bear.
Thank you, Paddington Bear. So Paddington will be talking to you. Yeah.
Groovy.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
it.
no, that's awesome. I love that. I love the I love where it goes as far as, you start off being like, okay, what is this ride? And then you really turn it into like a full-blown James Bond experience. That's great. I love that.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was
Thank you.
awesome.
Brady, what about you? What's your e-ticket? Thrill us.
Well, I want to start going first because all y'all are so good. Mine are just like, well, this is what I would not do.
Look,
with
you have
my
more
idea.
than I do, okay?
No,
I have
no.
Cars 2 jokes.
Yeah. Mine, I just kind of ran through. It was a motion simulator that I guess is similar to, it's a motion simulator and a VR experience, kind of similar to Smuggler's Run if you were given VR headset so that whenever you look left, right, up, down, and all that, you're seeing the surroundings, but you're still feeling the shifting of the platform that you're in, and whatnot. And you'd be going from kind of landscape to landscape from the respective Bond movies. But the problem I came up with was like, well, okay, so then you're just skiing down a snowy mountain into a forest, or you're underwater. Like, what then? What's Bond-centric about it after that? And quickly scratched the idea, but since I got to have something for you. Yeah, so different environments kind of replicated from the different movies that are going to bring you into those Bond movies. So let's say, like from GoldenEye, the part where he's in the tank moving down the street in the city, and I can't remember, it was Moscow or something like that. So something kind of like that, and then where you could take that, you get to control the vehicle, which direction it's going to go, and whatnot. And then, like I said, skiing down a mountain, you turn your head all around you, and you're seeing guys coming up, beside you and jumping off from behind trees trying to shoot you, and if you got to dodge each of them and fire back and whatnot. And then swimming in a swimming pool and just trying to dodge sharks, I guess, like a thunderball.
So are you picturing this kind of like being just a sequence of things put together, almost like Soren is, where you're going from
one just kind of pops in and out of the other. Now, the old, I can't remember if the new Star Tours update, whatever it was called, does this, but the old one would literally just like, your ride vehicle goes right into an asteroid, and then all of a sudden there's a flash and you're in the next sort of environment or whatever. So something kind of like that, you're just snapping from one landscape into another and having to work within the confines of that based on the, what's going to harm you in that landscape itself. And then, like I was saying, other assassins or people trying to shoot you or stuff like that you would find in the Bond movies.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. One thing I like about this is that it really maximizes space since you're using VR headsets, which, everybody's pretty wild about right now. That technology has made all sorts of leaps and bounds. So you're not really having to use up a like a space for dark rides, this could sit on top of another building, or it could even be in the MI6 headquarters that Scott was talking about earlier. So I think this is the kind of thing that like the Parks Operation Division, I think, would look at and really go gaga for, because beyond upkeep of computers and stuff like that, and making sure that coronavirus doesn't get on the different headsets that people are switching from person to person.
Oh, God.
I think that this is one that could really it could go a long way and stick around a long time.
Yeah, totally. I
really wanted to go. Obviously, I'm really into sort of 60s and all of that, and I really like the James Bond that doesn't take itself too seriously, but is also, it's sort of taking itself as seriously as it can, despite its holding itself back by the era that it's within. So your Roger Moore. I don't love the Roger Moore era because it's campy, but it knows it's campy. It's sort of like the like the old Batman show where it knows that it's being cheeky, Whereas in the 60s era with Connery, it was taking everything it was doing very seriously, but you look at it and you're like, yeah, those are guys in plastic bags. Like, I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. But I kind of like that. And so I wanted to recreate that sort of old style spy feel with like a big villain headquarters and goons and all of that stuff. And so this is you are basically entering a super villain lair. I'm thinking something that like, maybe it's even literally like a volcano base, like one of those deals.
Ooh.
And you are entering this thing, and the idea is that you are going to become you are auditioning to be a goon for Spectre, a Spectre agent, right? And you're showing up here, and then when you are left in a room for your sort of like first interview or what have you, this is where the pre-show happens, and M shows up and says, basically reveals that you are actually undercover, and you are working for MI6, of course, and that you are assisting James Bond on a mission. And so James Bond is already on the premises. And what I'm picturing as far as James Bond is sort of like, those things that were popular for a while, that meme where they just sort of combined all of the actors who have ever played James Bond into like this amalgam human. That's kind of what I'm picturing for James Bond. Like, I want it to be a just sort of like a platonic ideal James Bond. It's not any James Bond in particular.
Yeah.
It's, in that way, it's sort of like the Indiana Jones adventure animatronic, right?
Gotcha. And you're still thinking 60s era appropriate, like 60s suit and everything?
Totally.
Okay, cool.
And so after you get your mission that you're going to be assisting James Bond on this, you are then taken onto a sort of I'm picturing like one of those like golf cart things, like almost like the ones in the Austin Powers movie,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm picturing something like that, and I'm picturing, like lots of long hallways, and you're going into big rooms with lots of extras. And the idea of this ride is that rather than using animatronics, like sometimes you'll have to use animatronics, but I want this to basically be a stunt show that you're experiencing while you're on a ride.
Oh,
so
okay.
it is
Very
live actors like being set on fire, jumping out of stuff, firing at each other, and you're zooming through this base, trying to help James Bond on this mission. And so that's the concept. And the whole time you're sort of like zipping through this area, the best part to me is that the whole time when you get into this thing, it has shoulder restraints and you don't know why. in a perfect blue sky universe, you don't know that it has shoulder restraints until you get to the point where you have to escape the facility, and then the shoulder restraints come out and come over you. In a perfect world, that's what would happen, because that's what would happen in a James Bond movie. I have no idea how to practically make that happen without it being...
that's a lawsuit waiting to happen right
Right,
there.
exactly. There's no way to do it without it being extremely obtrusive, unless they sort of pop out of the back and you bring them down personally.
Sure, yeah.
So maybe it's something like that. And then a Spectre agent comes by and checks the yellow straps.
Please tug on your yellow strap, agent.
I had that joke locked and loaded.
But in any event, funnily enough, I didn't. Then what the escape is actually through. So you come into this area that's like a huge tower that's like up above you, and the idea is that you drive into this thing, and the cart, the seats that you're in they actually attach to the wall. And you don't realize that that's what's happening. And what Q or whoever is talking to you is telling you, or James Bond perhaps, is telling you, is that you are going to have to be on a jetpack to get out of there.
Oh.
And so the shoulder restraints go down, and then you shoot up. And then when you shoot up, you land on the roof, and in the roof is another vehicle. And so the seats are basically going from the one vehicle on the ground, shooting up, and then connecting into the vehicle up above, and then you drive forward to the exit. So that's sort of the idea of the ride. It's just sort of it's very Indiana Jones adventure is what I'm kind of picturing, is something akin to that, with the big room reveal and all of that. Obviously less mysticism and more goons, and then the stunt show stuff.
Sounds like some of that stuff is in the Rise of the Resistance, which I have not been on. Like the car, for example, lifting up off the ground into a new space, the big room reveal, actually having live actors at different places in there throughout or whatever. It's I don't know. Yeah, that's an awesome
the live
idea.
actors in Rise of the Resistance are specifically involved with Q operations. They're not in the actual ride itself.
No.
Yeah, the actual ride itself is all animatronics and screens.
And it's very clear on Rise of the Resistance that there are some that like really have a good time and play around with it, and then there are some that see themselves as a ride operator.
Right.
So you'll get like some will be
yeah,
I'm with the Resistance, I'm breaking you out, and then some like I'm with the Resistance. I'll just have a seat.
Oh no.
Yeah. I'm with the Resistance. Please come with me this way.
Man, there's nothing more like disheartening than seeing someone who works on a ride not into it or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like,
It's like, how did you even get this job? I'm sure so many cast members wanted this. How did they get you?
Yeah.
Somebody didn't show up for their shift. No, but Scott, with yours, I think a big difference with having the live actors is they all seem to be actor based in what they're doing. There's nobody there that's making sure that your seat, other than the guy we're talking about tugging on the belt,
right.
But everybody in the background serves a very specific purpose, and it's to stay in character the whole time, so that fourth wall breaking, even though it is kind of a meta ride to a degree, it doesn't seem to be happening on the ride like you could have with Rise of Skywalker.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is and the live actors inside the ride, I mean, that's the way that I picture that working, is that at any time, like, say you have, I don't know. I mean, I assume that the reset would have to be something like 2 minutes or a minute, like 60-second reset for each individual show scene. Maybe even faster than that. Probably faster than that. But then again, this isn't like Disneyland. Again, we're picturing like a Las Vegas situation. So maybe it doesn't need to be such a people eater. But
right.
in any event, the idea would be like, okay, say the reset is, let's say 45 seconds, right? So you would need to have on any individual shift 12 cast members playing that role. Of like the role of the guy who jumps through the window, or the guy that, whatever. And so that, you basically have a line of these guys in the back who each go and do this thing and jump through the, jump through the window or get shot or whatever. And like for the more intense stunts, those guys have a longer turn time than the ones who like just have to get shot or something. 'Cause they just have to fall down and then get back up and do it again. But it would be a fairly intense cast member experience for sure.
Yeah. There was a point, I believe, in the development of Jurassic Park the Ride, that there was supposed to be a live actor like in the warehouse section, like after you've gone up the lift hill.
Mm-hmm.
There was supposed to be an actor that got eaten by a raptor, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it's like he comes out and says, "Oh, we need to get you out of here." And then and then like a giant puppet essentially comes and like bites his torso.
Yeah.
Kyle, why the hell didn't we know this?
That reminds me, it almost sounds like they took that idea and then ended up using it on The Mummy Returns.
It's exactly. That's
Yeah,
exactly.
I know what you're talking
I feel
about, the
like it is
projection.
the.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds exactly like just sort of like the precursor to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, good ideas never die.
Right. Yeah. So that's my James Bond e-ticket.
I really love that idea, and I love again that you're playing with the different time periods of everything, because there could be fans of like, well, I like the old James Bond. Some people are like, well, I like the new James Bond. It's like, great, we've got it for both you guys,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool.
All right. Well, any closing thoughts, Brian? Do you want to go to any of our theme parks?
I want to go to all of your theme parks. I like the idea that
Good answer.
Yeah, no, I like the idea that Scott's Years is in Vegas. I like that just because it just gives me another thing to do while I'm in Vegas. And I've only been to Vegas one time, and I liked it. I spent some time at slot machines and saw a couple shows, but yeah, I would love for more themed entertainment. Like, I'm not a Star Trek guy, but I absolutely would have done that Star Trek experience if it was there when I was there, because that sounds unbelievable. And so, yeah, if there was a James Bond experience there, I would absolutely do that. Can I just have both of your e-tickets in my park, though?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they
not?
complement each other in a fun way. Honestly,
They actually do.
Yeah.
Actually, all of our e-tickets. I think all of our stuff together makes like a perfect James Bond park.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. This is a cool idea. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
thanks for coming.
And that's to say nothing of the fact that at somewhere at this park we've got to have gold body painting. I mean, that's just
Oh well,
that's
yeah.
gotta be,
yeah.
that's got to
Instead
be
of face painting, yeah.
You have to
That's
do it
awesome.
at the park. You can't show up in your own gold body paint.
right.
They will turn you away from the
Right.
gates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely got to do that. That would be fun. And definitely not painful in the Las Vegas sun.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with our next episode of Theme Park This. In the meantime, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do that at Theme Park This. We also have a Theme Park This listener group on Facebook, so check that out as well. Look for the link in the show notes to this episode. And I think that about does it. Brady, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Anytime you need me back, just let me know. This is great.
All right. Okay, so thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Bye.